Welcome to another episode of Thorns Jungle. I hope you all had a great weekend. Mine was pretty interesting, but I'll get into that shortly. Uh, I do have a Patreon up and running for Thorns Jungle. This will get you an extra episode a week, extra bonus content for the Ultimate Animal Quiz every month, and a whole bunch of other goodies. So for as little as $3 a month, you can get all of that. You won't even notice that coming out of your bank account. Unless you do. Whatever. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please subscribe and rate the show because it does actually help quite a bit. Alright, let's get into it. So, the whole debate, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's all over social media. It's the whole, would a gorilla be able to beat 100 men in a fight, or would 100 men be able to beat one gorilla in a fight, and no weapons involved, just hand-to-hand combat. Now, it's all over social media. If you haven't seen it, I would be very surprised, because it was all I could see when I went on any of the social media platforms. It was like the first thing that would come up would be somebody weighing in on who would win. And it's all up in the air, and you know what? I let it sit for a while. I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. This is just so dumb. But foolish me, I was like, well, I've studied primatology. I love primates. I've seen gorillas in the wild. And if there's anyone that should be weighing in on this, it would be someone like me. And there are other sort of wildlife people that have weighed in on it. And, I had my own opinion about it. And, I don't even know where this stemmed from. I think it might have been like Mr. Beast or something like that. But anyway, that was beside the point. I decided, no joke, it was spur of the moment. I walked upstairs into here and I was like, oh, I'll just do a little video on it. Just, giving my opinion about it. Big mistake. Jesus Christ. It was like, it blew up. It absolutely blew up. Now, before I get into all that stuff that happened, I will just tell you my reasoning behind my answer and as to why I came to the conclusion I came to in a little more detail, because my video went for a minute, so you can't fit much in there. So I couldn't really elaborate on my answer that much. But now, the good thing about having a podcast is I can talk for however the hell I want. And I'm going to, okay? So in my reel, I said, for one, you won't fit 100 people around a gorilla. Now, people saw that as, why did it go from 100 people to 5 people? It didn't, okay? If you understood the context and sort of what I was saying is, think about it. A crowd of 100 men, physically, how would it be possible for them to all be fighting this gorilla at the same time? Think about if you've ever been to a concert or anything like that. If you ever see a crowd surfer, how many people can touch that crowd surfer at once? You've got maybe 3 people underneath them, 4 people, and then it's just a sea of people. They can't all be laying hands on that crowd surfer. There is only a finite amount of people that can touch an object that isn't that much bigger than a man at one time. Alright? It's like the whole thing with the pyramids. Some of those massive stones weigh 50 tons or something, and they're huge. They're like 30, 40, 50 feet, in size. And people say, oh, you just get 10,000 people to push it. Guys, 10,000 people wouldn't be able to fit around it. They would, be able to fit around it, but too much to where the people at the back won't even be touching anything. So it's the same sort of thing, and that was what I was saying. And a lot of people got that and were like, "Oh, well, you get at least 10 people." It's like, yeah, you probably could. And if I was to go back in time, I probably would have said 10. But the reason why I said 5, because I was like, you throw like waves after wave of 5 people at a time. So there'll always be 5 people on this thing. And you can like, whoever gets destroyed by the gorilla switches out. So I said 5 because my reasoning was, if you've got 10 people, it still is going to get a little crowded. You need to understand that there are going to be people swinging punches and kicks, okay? How effective could you do that in such close quarters with the other person? All right? Probably not that effective. They'll probably end up knocking each other out, right? Which probably would be a good thing, It'd be another win for the gorilla. And look, nothing wants me seeing that gorilla winning more than anything in the world. I would love to see that gorilla winning, but it just ain't happening against 100 men. It ain't happening. You got to look at it this way, right? If the question was, how many people, so could 100 people, let's stick with the same formula, could 100 people beat one powerlifter in a fight? It would be unanimous, of course. Let's look at a world champion powerlifter. Let's say Brian Shaw, okay? One of the strongest men on the planet. He's 6'8" and weighs about 400 pounds. So he weighs about the same as an adult silverback gorilla, okay? He is about 8 inches taller than the average, a decent sized silverback gorilla. So he's got 8 inches on this gorilla. And he is strong. And a lot of people will be like, oh, he's still not as strong as a silverback gorilla. He probably would be pretty damn close, right? This guy can deadlift nearly half a ton. So he can nearly pick up 500 kilograms off the floor. That's probably 4, 5, 6 times stronger than just your average human being. Your average human being, I doubt, could pick up 90 kilos, 70 kilos off the floor. Your average person, okay? But if we were to look at it, modestly, or actually let's do them a favor and let's say that, the average person could lift 100 kilos off the floor, which they absolutely couldn't. He's still about 4 or 5 times stronger than the average person, okay? That's close to what a silverback gorilla is, alright? Yes, silverback gorillas have more, agility strength. They've got longer muscle bellies. They do have a bite force stupidly higher than a person's. So they do have added weaponry, let's say, okay? But still, if you look at it that way, of course 100 people will beat one man in a fight. Of course, nobody would argue that, alright? Then you add a couple little more added modifications to him. So a real incredible bite force, huge canine teeth. Let's give him some speed and agility. It still ain't happening. It's not enough to turn the tables to the point where he is all of a sudden beating 100 men in a fight. Okay? If you look at another powerlifter like Eddie Hall, for example, yeah, he done alright in his past few little exhibition MMA fights, boxing match and stuff. Actually, no, he did bad. So he got beaten by Hafthor Bjornsson or whatever his name is, another strongman. Another strongman beat Eddie Hall, who is another world champion strongman. He has the record for the highest deadlift. It was 501 kilograms or something. So it was over half a ton. And one man beat him in a boxing match, okay? Yes, Thor is 6'9" and 200 kilos or something, another strongman, but still, a man beat a strong man who is close to the strength of a silverback gorilla and still taller than a silverback gorilla. People need to understand that gorillas aren't these gigantic King Kong sized animals, okay? A tall silverback would be 6 feet tall, okay? The tallest they've ever found was 6'5", and that was a freak, okay? They average between 5'9", 5'10", sometimes 6 foot. So not stupidly tall, okay? On the weight side of it, they are stupidly heavy. We're talking 4 or 5 pounds, or like 180 kilos to 220 kilos or something like that. They get very heavy. They're very well built. They have incredibly dense bones, right? So their bone density is another advantage what they have over humans. But still, they're not unbreakable, okay? And yes, they're incredibly strong. That is 400 or 500 pounds of like mostly stupidly ripped muscle, right? Yes, they do have big guts on them, but that's not fat. That's just due to the plants that they eat. They're herbivores. They eat mostly folivores, to be honest. They eat grasses, leaves. They will eat things like bark, or like the pith of certain plants, and like stalks and things like that. Of course, they'll eat fruits too. On the odd occasion, they will get bugs in their diet, but not as high as another ape like a chimpanzee or something, which has a more carnivorous diet than a gorilla. But they are huge hominids, enormous apes. But there are people that are bigger than them. A lot of people that are bigger than gorillas, okay? So that was what I was kind of getting to, but obviously didn't have enough time in a 1-minute video, is to say that as powerful as a gorilla is, it's just not going to beat 100 men. That's what I was saying. You'll throw, and this is another thing as well. A gorilla, like a human, is an animal. There is only a finite amount of energy a gorilla has. Okay, so to feed an animal that's 400 or 500 pounds, it pretty much has to eat all day. Okay, just to get that amount of energy to give to that animal so it can feed itself. So it requires energy so it can have enough energy to get that energy. All right. Animals, including humans, but that's a different story because humans eat far more energy than they burn. But animals eat enough energy for their survival. Okay? Any excess energy they don't need. They're just burning more energy to find that energy, so it's kind of useless. So a silverback gorilla obviously requires more energy than the younger gorillas or the females, but that's just so he can be so large he can defend his family, which he does fiercely. They are great defenders of their families, right? So he doesn't need to eat any extra calories for what he needs for survival. So you get a gorilla that just, eating enough for him, and you throw him up to fight 100 men, he is burning out, right? He will lose energy. Of course he will. It's a no-brainer. Yes, they can move quicker than people, that's for sure. They can get up trees far easier than a human would be. In fact, seeing a giant silverback climb up a tree with just such grace is mind-blowing. This giant, jacked animal just so casually and gracefully getting up a tree is really cool to see. And I never once said that men would not come out unscathed from this fight. There are going to be a lot of people seriously injured, if not killed. But ultimately, that gorilla will run out of energy, for sure. It's like you waking up one morning and somebody going, you need to run a marathon now. And you haven't eaten the energy for that marathon. You haven't loaded your muscles with glycogen for that marathon. It's like that, right? Um, so my ultimate sort of end reasoning was that that gorilla will run out of energy, and it absolutely will. So th- if I could put out a longer reel and it went viral and I explained it that way, I hope I wouldn't have got so many psychos in my comments, because it was unreal, man. It was insane. And I resented the fact that out of any of my videos that I've had on social media, that one went viral, answering such a dumb question. Like, what has the internet become? I wish the question was, how much money could 100 men raise for gorilla conservation? I wish that went viral. Not how many, like, could 100 men fight and beat a gorilla? Like, come on, man. It's like, we already have, well, the vast majority of people already have this perception of gorillas as being these ferocious, like, mindless, aggressive creatures, where that couldn't be further from the truth. Gorillas are actually very peaceful animals. Unless something threatens their family, they are very peaceful. The only real time they get aggressive is when there's a rival male that is threatening the leader of that family, and they have a fight, or another male gets to that age where he wants to now take over that family. There will be a fight, or if there are poachers or something like that threatening that family, he would defend it fiercely. He would defend that family. But and that's what people see, is that. And I mean, who wouldn't defend their family like that? Any animal does and would. But the fact of the matter is, I've seen gigantic silverback gorillas being so gentle with very, very young babies, and just nurturing them, kissing their hands, playing with them, things like that. That is the majority of a silverback gorilla, is what you see, is being a great leader, a family man, right? And defending his family ferociously, which any father would do. And that is a gorilla, not these larger than life, 10-foot tall, giant canine teeth, like frothing at the mouth, just like annihilating things. No, not at all. They're the opposite. Okay? That's what I'd love people to think of when they picture a gorilla, is that, instead of all this, like, who would win in a fight? Who would win in a fight? It is so dumb. And yeah, I fell for it. Hey, I fell for it because I wanted people to know that they're not these, like, they're just not going to annihilate 100 people in one go. They are, I'd love to say, they're only human. They're going to be exhausted. And hey, they are close to being human. But they're better because they don't ask dumb questions like this. And speaking of dumb, jeez, I was this close to deleting that video, to be honest. This close. Most people would love a video like that to go viral. It got well over 10 million views. It got shared like 100,000 times. I had the news contacting me wanting an interview. I had one contact me this morning wanting an interview, and I was like, I don't want to put any more light onto this crap. And the good thing about the difference between social media and TV, like, I got more backlash from that 1 minute reel than I did doing 2 seasons of Kings of Pain on History Channel. And the reasoning is, all of a sudden, I'm getting millions of people on my personal profile. When you're on TV, you can't read any comments unless you're dumb enough to go on, like, the YouTube things that History Channel do, or forums and stuff like that. But you have to seek them out. When you have something go viral on your personal accounts, even though I don't read the comments, well, the vast majority of them, when you go and look at your notifications, they're there. You can't miss them. A lot of them are there. And I fell for it, man. I got sucked in and started replying to some of them, like kind of aggressively. Which people say, oh, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. But I don't care, man. You come onto my video and post dumb stuff, I'm gonna reply to it with a dumb answer that makes you look dumb. And the thing is, half of the people, if not more, like from the very few comments I saw, half of the people hadn't even watched the full video. Like, they were like, this guy's saying that, a gorilla could beat 100 people. It's like, no, I said the opposite. If you actually watched the entire video, you would see that I said people will win. Like, it was so obvious that most of the people commenting dumb stuff hadn't even watched the whole video, which blows my mind. It held depressed me for like a few days. I was like, I cannot believe how dumb people are. It blows my mind how stupid. And it was the hundreds, if not thousands, of comments of the, when did it go from 100 to 5? I'm like, tell me how you could get 100 people all fighting a gorilla at once, and I'll take my statement back. Tell me how that would work. That was like the majority of the comments, and I was getting mentioned in people's stories all the time. I had one dude post a story with my reel and basically accusing me of being a white colonialist, slave owner, racist guy that killed Steve Irwin. He was like, it's people like this back in the day that said that, black people aren't human, and he's a wannabe Steve Irwin, and he probably had something to do with the death of Steve Irwin. And I was like, what the hell? Really? You got all of that out of that 1 minute reel? Jesus, that's people that want to be offended and are looking for anything to be offended by, and to, any reason to just be dramatic. It blew my mind. Now, there were a lot of people that defended me, which was great to see, but what happens on social media is it is full of psychos, and it is full of everybody's an expert all of a sudden. Everybody's an expert on primates. Everyone's an expert on fighting all of a sudden. And it kind of cracks me up because, like, I would never say I'm an expert at anything. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at animals. I wouldn't say because you can't be an expert at animals. You can't. An expert is somebody that knows basically everything about that one thing. And the beauty of animals is you can never know everything about animals. You're always surprised, and that's why I love animals. One of the reasons why I love animals so much is you are constantly surprised at how bloody cool they are, and you're constantly learning, and I love that. An expert is somebody that has done a PhD on this certain species of beetle, which there's like 200,000 plus species of, but you're an expert at this one little beetle and its wing structure. You're an expert at that particular niche. That is an expert. You can't be an expert at animals. You can't. It's impossible. But you can know a lot about them, and I do know a lot about animals. So when people chime in and like challenge that, I'll go, yes, like, you're entitled to your opinion, but it is an uneducated opinion, especially when it's an opinion on a theoretical question like who would win in a fight out of 100 men versus a gorilla. It's a theoretical question that doesn't have any answer, right or wrong, because it's never happened, it never will happen. So all you can do is come up with a answer that is the most plausible, right? And there are a lot of plausible answers. There's not one answer that's right, okay? There's just an answer that, okay, that could work, and there's probably a million answers that could work. I just gave a more realistic, plausible answer out of hundreds or thousands of realistic, plausible answers. That's what I was guilty of, and for some reason, it outraged the internet. It was mind-blowing how many people were outraged by this 1 minute video. Like, it blew my mind. But it got to the point where, like, I became so thankful that I have this podcast, because it really, like, I knew people online are insane, like foaming at the mouth, insane, right? I even had people that were really triggered by just some of the words I used. Some guy went absolutely ballistic because I said decimate, and he was like, "That means 1/10. Decimate means 1/10." And I'm like, well, no, it used to back in like 200 BC, but the English language evolves. That's why when you read Shakespeare, you can barely understand what he's saying, and that is more real English than what we speak. And it may as well be a different language, because the English language evolves and becomes bastardized. Um, and I explained that to him. I was like, if you actually look up the definition now, it means to basically destroy a large, you know, quantity of things, stuff like that. Because it's evolved into that, it no longer means that. But yeah, just people absolutely getting triggered by just the way I said things. It blew my mind, and it did really depress me, because I was like, this is the world we live in. This is These are the people that have decisions over who runs the world, who does this, who does that. These absolute nutters online. And these are people that ultimately influence a lot of things, and it's really, really scary when you have an actual guy that knows what he's talking about, knows more than you, and you come back and go absolutely insane because that's not what you thought. It blows my mind. Like, it's like people that have scientists that are experts in their field say, no, this actually is what that is, explaining something, and somebody that's not done a lick of study in that field, just because their opinion is different, comes and attacks a guy that's actually studied his entire life on that subject, and somebody that has done no study comes and absolutely annihilates them. Oh, that's my opinion. Yeah, but you can have your opinion, but it's wrong, right? You can say whatever you want to say. That's freedom of speech, man, and I'm all for that. But just so you know, it's wrong, right? Okay? So that is what baffles me, that a lot of people listen to those people more than actual scientists and experts in their field. Um, it really depressed me. And it got to the point where if I didn't have Nature Quest, the safari company that I operate with, Caveman Rob from Kings of Pain, if I didn't have that, man, I would have come pretty close to deleting my social medias, because I was like, I don't want to deal with this. I, of course, would have kept the podcast, because I don't see that many comments on the podcast, because it's on like, podcasting apps. Yeah, you can leave comments, but it's more difficult to leave comments on like Spotify and stuff like that than it is to like do it on social media. So yeah, I reckon if I didn't need social media for Nature Quest, I probably wouldn't have it, to be honest. It's just such a great tool at promoting, our tours and things like that. And as well, like, if you want to see gorillas in the wild close up, you can come with us, with me and Caveman Rob. On January 10th, we are doing another Uganda trip, and you can get close to gorillas in the wild and chimpanzees and see all the other iconic African wildlife as well. So hit me up on any of my social medias, DM me, whatever, if you want to come, because it is a life-changing experience, and you will fall in love with gorillas. We've also got one spot left on our conservation trip in South Africa in October. So if you want to come on that, get hands-on with animals, you can. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, you know what? I'm still going to do social media. I'm still obviously going to do this podcast, and I want to grow this podcast enormously. Um, but it just really opened my eyes to like, uh, if you're a social media influencer, I take my hat off to you, because there are people that have had videos go far more viral than mine, and videos that do minimum 10 million views or whatever I got on mine, and they do that weekly. I don't know how they do it. You know, it is so hard not to cop a glimpse of some of the comments and stuff like that and not get sucked down that rabbit hole of like angrily replying to them, which I just can't help it, because I'm like, mate, you came into my house. You know, I'll defend myself like a gorilla does with his family and his territory. But yeah, from now on, and you know what? It sucked because there were probably people that had really great comments, and even on my other videos, like my normal followers, you know, if they wanted to comment on a photo or video that I'd done previously, there's no way I would have seen it because it was flooded with tens of thousands of comments and likes throughout TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So yeah, it did suck. Like, I want quality followers, not quantity. I don't care if I have 1 million followers on my social media platforms. If they're all like stupid keyboard warriors or something like that, I don't want it. I want quality followers, followers that I can interact with and form a community around, and supporters and things like that, not moronic, you know, meathead followers. So, and that's why I love this podcast, because I know if people are committing half an hour to an hour a week, or 2 hours or whatever it is, if you're a Patreon supporter, because you do get extra content, that means you are interested in what I have to say, and you are supporting me uh, better than anybody just doing a comment on a photo or video. You are designating time to listen to me, and you are interested in what I have to say, and that is worth way more to me than a like or a follow on social media or a comment or something like that, especially if you're a Patreon supporter, because now you're paying to hear what I have to say, and watch me and listen to me, which is crazy cool for me. You know, yeah, it might only be like $3 a month, but that's still your money that you're, you know, using to support this show, which is awesome, and I'm so grateful for that. So anybody that is doing that, you are bloody legends, honestly. Um, but yeah, that I needed to get that off my chest about this whole stupid bloody question. I honestly can't believe, like, I've got videos of me having the most amazing wildlife moments ever, right? They didn't go viral. This dumbass question went and answer went viral. And I really resent that, because it's so dumb. Like, we need to start looking at gorillas very differently. And just the reaction and response I had on social media is just like proof that social media is dumbing down the masses something wicked, and it's very depressing. Very depressing. But I've got a thick skin, I think. So, yeah, I just ignore it, water off a duck's back, and that's what I started to do. Just ignore it. A lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinion of a sheep. Remember that. Alrighty, so that is my rant episode for this week. If you haven't already, check out the Ultimate Animal Quiz episode we did last week. That was so fun. I can't wait to do the next one. If you are a member of my Patreon, there will be another episode of Thorns Jungle for you to listen to this week and or watch if you want to. So I hope you look forward to that. And I look forward to seeing you, even though I'm not seeing you, on another episode of Thorns Jungle. Have a good week, everyone.